Welcome back. Today I wanted to go over some yogic philosophy. I wanted to go over the bare bones, what yoga says we're up against, and how we can deal with that. And I want to take these principles and I want to ground them in your own practice. Where do they fit in with what you're practicing? And very importantly, I want to talk a little bit about Kundalini because this word has been, especially the word Shakti, has been grossly misunderstood and misinterpreted here in the West. So we're going to put it in the framework, see where it fits, so we can get a better idea of exactly what it is and how it works. So get ready. Okay, so here at the top we have the one, Brahman. And this is completely non-dual. So the word Brahman, interestingly, which is different from the word Brahma. Okay, you have Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, creator, preserver, and destroyer. Okay, that's a sine wave, right? That's a sine wave of creation. And that is the Om vibration, that sine wave of creation. And that's the vibration that we can hear in meditation in every cell and in especially in your nervous system as it vibrates. But Brahman is different because Brahman is neuter. It's not male, it's not female. So this is a non-dual state, far beyond the dualistic state that we're using right now to communicate. Next up, we have Kundalini Shakti. And Shakti has historically here in the West has been translated as energy, which would put it with prana. But if you look at this chart, we have pranomaya, which is the energetic sheath, way down here on the opposite end of the spectrum. Kundalini does not belong down here. She belongs way, way up here, right under Brahman. There's a wonderful book called Kundalini Vidya, and I hope you'll get it. I'm going to have a link below. It's really amazing, and she just published a follow-up book last year, and both are really amazing and worth a read. And she says more accurately the translation of Kundalini Shakti would be divine power. So Shakti would be much more akin to power. One of the ways to think about Kundalini is it's the force that grows you from a child. So one cell becomes two cells, one cell becomes two cells. So one cell becomes two cells, and then two becomes four, and then four becomes eight, eight becomes 16, on and on and on. And that's how we grow into the size that we are today. Now, what is the guiding force behind all that growth, and how does it know to stop so we don't just getting bigger and bigger? How does it know to stop? That's an intelligent force, right? In yogic philosophy, I think a much better translation of Kundalini Shakti would be divine intelligence. So divine intelligence, divine power, that's a much more accurate description. So that same force that grows us from a child quits its process and then settles down into the coccyx in the spine, at the very base of the spine. That's what yogic philosophy tells us. And in the process of meditation, she is awakened again. That intelligence awakens again and starts her journey up the spine. And you can feel that. But when you feel it, you're not actually feeling Kundalini. You're feeling the movement of the pranavayus. So after Kundalini Shakti comes the three gunas. And these are three underlying principles. You have an activating force, you have a slowing force, and you have a pure or balanced force. And those are sattva, the balanced force, rajas, the activating force, and tamas, the slowing force. And these three forces are always active in the body. Now, interestingly, I just read, wonderful students just sent me an article on the Polyvagal theory and how someone thought that it lined up very well with the three gunas. Now, the three gunas are in everything, and of course they're going to be manifest within the polyvagal system, but they're not associated directly with the three nervous systems, because as you can see, They're way up here at the top of the scale, and the physical form is way down here at the bottom, and the energetic form, which is the base and the force behind our nervous system that makes it work, is way down here as well. So the three gunas are of course going to be active, but they are way up here on the opposite side of the philosophy. Now, once those elements are in action, you can begin to create the 5 koshas. And those are 5 sheaths. Those are the 5 sheaths. And they describe the making of you and I, the vessel that we inhabit. So we're not the vessel, of course, but we inhabit the vessel. Just as like you are not your car, but you use it every day. So the top of that scale, the very first sheath that's made is the Anandamayo kosha. So Ananda, bliss. Maya means illusion. So in every sheath, the yogic philosophers are reminding us, this is not real. This is illusion. Therefore, we put Maya right in the name. The Ananda Maya sheath, okay? And that's the bliss sheath. It's also the causal form because it's the cause, it's the beginning of all of this. And it's what actually in this philosophy causes the rebirth. So we can lose everything else. We don't actually lose everything else in death, but we could lose everything else and still have the causal form, the bliss sheath, which would carry us into the next incarnation. So that's where your true record is stored, in the bliss sheath, according to yogic philosophy. Now the next sheath is the discernment sheath. So this is the beginning of your mind. It's not the sensory mind, it's not connected with the senses, it's the very intellectual part of us, the very removed part of us, the part of us that can look back on ourselves very dispassionately. I'm not saying that these are synonymous, but I'm saying this would be the force that underlies the prefrontal cortex, okay? This would be the force that gives that support and allows it to operate. Because neuroscience has pointed out to us not so long ago that it's the prefrontal cortex which allows us to stand outside of ourselves and look back on ourselves and reflect on who and what we are, make decisions about who and what we are, and actually create change. This, interestingly enough, is also what allows us to be compassionate, because you can't feel empathy for somebody else until you step outside of yourself and put yourself in their shoes, as my mother always told me. You got to step outside of yourself before you can feel compassion and empathy. So really interesting. So it's the prefrontal cortex which allows us to do that, allows us to step outside of ourselves. Now, next we have the Manomaya kosha, and this can give us a lot of problems because it's the house of chitta, samskaras, and desires or drives, vasanas. And hey, if I mispronounce any of this, I'm so sorry. I'm doing my very best. I'm a yogic practitioner. You understand, I'm not a scholar. So I see this all from the point of action. So this very aptly is often described as the Great Barrier because of all those memories and all those habits of action, habits of thought. And so this is associated with the unconscious mind and with the limbic brain. That's where all of our emotions are stored, within the limbic brain. That's not to say that this sheath is synonymous with the limbic brain. It's not, but this would be the underlying force that would give the limbic brain the ability to do all of this. Next, we finally get down to the Pranomaya kosha, which is the sheath of energy. And here we have vayus, which are vital airs, okay? So prana, apana, samana, vayana, and udana, okay? Those are the 5 primary airs. So often we simplify it and we say, well, I felt prana, right? But there are actually 5 different airs that you can feel. And prana is only one of them. It's the force which goes up. So that's what drives the diaphragm to go up. That's what drives your blood. It assists and drives the blood up into the brain. You wouldn't be able to function without that. Then we have the apana, which pushes things down. What we use for elimination, the blood has to go down into the lower extremities, and the barrier between those two, so that those two don't get mixed up unintentionally. You don't want what is supposed to go down, you don't want that going up. So you have to have a barrier, an energetic barrier, which we call samana. So that's the barrier in between. So in pictures, you'll see samana right about here in the region of the diaphragm, which helps to keep things that go down, down, and things that go up, up. Vayana assists with the blood and the circulation throughout the entire body and the nervous system throughout, all of the nerves throughout all of the limbs. So you'll see Vayana spread through the entire body. And then Udana starts in the throat, goes up in the head, and forms a spiral. Now that's very important and very interesting. That Udana assists with the circulation of several spinal fluid within the brain. Very, very interesting. So those are the 5 primary airs. There are more, and a good way to look at them is that these are supporting and assisting the meta programs of action within the body. The lungs, that's a meta program. You don't have to think about it, it just happens by itself through the process of your unconscious mind. That unconscious support is found in the Manomaya Kosha. That supports the Pranamaya Kosha, you see how one builds on the other? So finally, we have the Anomaya Kosha, or the atom sheath. The atom illusory sheath. And this is where you and I look across the table at each other. This is the physical form. Joan Harrigan so aptly calls it the food sheath. So only down here between the physical form and the energetic form, between those two, we could supply a philosophy of the Polyvagal theory, because that's where it would fit, not up here with the gunas. The gunas are at play in all of this. Without the gunas, you cannot form the sheaths. But you can't say that the 3 nervous systems are synonymous with the 3 gunas. That just doesn't fit. And you cannot say that Kundalini Shakti is an energy, because here we have all of the energies, no Kundalini. Kundalini is not an energy. It is a divine power or divine intelligence. So you can see this is the higher self, and this is a force of the higher self. And that makes Kundalini very mysterious. We can have a long discussion about Kundalini, but there's a lot of Kundalini, there's a lot going on in Kundalini that you just can't put your finger on, because at the end of the day, it is a divine and mysterious force underlying all of this process of yoga. I had a wonderful talk with a very advanced yogi in Canada, and I was relating some of this. You cannot force the Kundalini. At the end of the day, it's a mysterious force, and it has its own timetable. It has its own clock and way of doing things. He said, "Oh my goodness, that is exactly what the South Indian Siddhas say. They say that she is like a young woman, and you cannot know her ways." I thought that was very fitting, very, very true. So this is a force of your higher self, and it's not something that can be roped in. It's something that you can assist with meditation. By the process of meditation, we awaken chakras, we clean out nadis, and we use and strengthen and awaken the 5 vital airs. And we may also awaken dalas, which are brain centers. Now, a lot of people think that there are 7 chakras, but there are not. There are only 6 chakras. And then we have padmas. Now, padma comes from the word lotus. So there are lotuses, this 1,000-petaled lotus on the top of the head. There are 2 more on either side of the heart. But these are not chakras. Chakras are, see, the Gita makes a dividing line, a very important dividing line between the medulla and the rest of the brain, and says this, everything down, is the battlefield. It is the place of action. It is the field where we do our yogic work, the battle of Kurukshetra. Everything above is heaven, and we don't do action in heaven. So Krishna never actually takes action in Kurukshetra. He always tells the rest of the Pandava brothers what to do. That's a very, very important dividing line, especially when it comes to understanding Kriya Yoga. There should be no action that takes place above the medulla. So what is it that we are endeavoring to do in meditation? What do we want to accomplish? Very simply, we want to clean out the physical form. We want to clean out the energetic form. We want to clean out as well as we can the memory system, the samskaras, the drives, and the chitta, the heart-mind. We want to clean out all of that as well as we can. We want to create some correct and right discernment so that we can begin to get in touch with the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss. When we begin to get in touch with that, that will create meditative mellows. And those mellows will assist in the continuing cleaning of the rest of the system. If you've ever had a really good meditation, you've come out, you feel fresh, you feel clean, and suddenly you look on your life and the problems it has, and you feel yourself pulled way back from it. And sometimes I've even laughed at my own problems and thought, really, it's not that bad. It's okay. I don't have to worry about it so hard. And that is so refreshing. And this is the kind of non-attachment which is healthy, which is very healthy. So the disassociation and the non-attachment that we talk about in meditation is a very healthy one, which allows us to step back and look on ourselves, look on our lives in a new light, without this heavy, heavy past hanging over us and squashing our discernment, squashing our sense of bliss. So that's, I think, a really great way to look at meditation, that we just want to wipe a lot of this stuff out of the way. That means that we're not destroying it, we're not getting rid of it. We're just wiping the slate clean so we can begin to get in touch with this Anandamaya Kosha, which will have a deep and mellowing effect on the rest of the system, allow us to continue to clean on a much deeper level. This is how Kriya Yoga works. It creates meditative mellows. That's how Lahiri Mahashaya's Kriya Yoga works. It creates meditative mellows and puts us in contact with bliss as soon as possible, so that that bliss can act on us and continuously clean the system. It's a really remarkable system. It's a householder system. It's designed to be gentle and wonderful. What's more wonderful than bliss? Now, eventually, even that sheath needs to fall away so that we can experience the unified non-dual state in the medulla oblongata. And it's at that point where we truly become free. Up until that point, we're still in the world of duality. That bliss is the doorway to experiencing that non-dual state. And so I was talking to my meditative teacher one time, and I said, oh, I feel so great. I feel, a lot of happiness. And he corrected me and he said, it's not happiness, because happiness has a dual. It's sadness. Clean your language and begin to understand that it's bliss that you're after, and it's bliss that you want to be experiencing. Bliss does not have a dual. As we use the bliss to get closer and closer to the non-dual state, there's less and less duality. You see how that is the path, that is the doorway. Now, one other thing, a lot of times we can silence the left mind. the left brain, the chatterbox, right? And yet we'll still find that in the background, there's a lot of noise going on. So you've silenced the front of your brain that could be associated with the prefrontal cortex. It's become quiet. Discernment sheath has withdrawn from the left brain and the chatter, all right? And it's mellowed down. Then you may notice that there's a lot of background chatter still going on in the background of your mind. You might not have been aware of it before, but suddenly it's become very loud. That's a different sheath. That's the Manomaya sheath, you understand? And that chatter is taking place in the unconscious mind, in the limbic brain. So now we need a second no mind technique to help us to clear that out. Lahiri's Kriya Yoga is designed to affect the entire system at once. And I have some really exciting theories about how that's working. I want to share that with you guys. So that's two things I want to share with you. A second no mind technique, which works specifically on the limbic brain, on the memory system, on that voice which is in the background, not in the foreground, but in the background of your mind as you meditate and bothers you. There's a really great tool which was just invented in the 1980s to act on that. And finally, I want to share with you guys some theories I have on exactly how Kriya Yoga is working. And this is going to give us some clarity on what forms of Kriya are actually deeply, deeply helpful to the entire yogic process to get us into that non-dual state. I hope this was helpful for you guys in understanding the entire layout of yogic theory. If it was, be sure to hit that bell, subscribe, so you can stay tuned for the next video coming up. Take care, and I'll see you next time. And if you like this video, oh my goodness, you gotta check out this one. And then there's this one.